Okay, so we are here recreating this Theremin sketch that we see in this Google Doodle. So we have a little glowing orb, and then there are these three, or rather, actually 8 different squares where different notes are going to happen. Okay, and you notice that when I put the orb in the square that I'm in lights up. Okay, so let's get back to our sketch here. All right, so to do this, I am going to need some rectangles, okay? And I'm also, since I have multiple rectangles, instead of me making a bunch of rectangles, I'm gonna use a for loop. So if you remember back when we made the xylophone sketch, we introduced for loops there, so you can go and check that out if you need a little brush up on that, okay? But basically what I'm doing is I'm dividing the canvas into 8 equal parts. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to first make a variable. I'm going to call it W. Okay, so this W is basically, I want to be the number that represents 1/8 of the canvas. Okay, so, and that's going to be an important number if I want to break it up, the canvas, into 8 equal parts. So what I'm going to do is width divided by 8. So now I have this variable which is equal to 1/8 of the screen. So next, in order to make 8 different rectangles, I'm going to use this for loop. So remember, for is open close parentheses, open close curly brackets. So in here I have sort of these multiple steps. I need to first make a counter, which I'm going to call I. I then need to set sort of the threshold of when it will stop counting, and in this case I'm going to make that 8. So as long as I is less than 8, it will keep running whatever in these square brackets. And then I need to increase my counter. I'm going to increase it by 1, which is I plus plus. Okay, so now I'm just going to make my rectangles. So to do this, I'm going to start the rectangle at 0, and then each rectangle I make is going to be 1/8 of the way up from that. Okay, so I'm going to do this, I'm going to have it at W, but it's going to start first at 0, and then 1/8, and then 2/8, and then 3/8, and 4/8, and moving on. So what I'm going to do is just multiply it by my counter. Okay, so it'll start at 0, and then the next time through it'll be 1/8 times 1, and it'll be 1/8 times 2, and 1/8 times 3 as we go through that counter. Okay, I'm not going to get too fancy here, so I'm just going to start my squares all at the top, and they're going to run all the way to the bottom. Okay, and then the width of each square is just going to be 1/8 of the canvas. So it's this variable, by multiplying it by the counter, it's just going to move me an eighth across, and then each rectangle is just going to be the width, or 1/8 of the width, which is going to be W, and then I'm going to do height here, and let's run it. Okay, so some interesting stuff here is happening. I believe that worked. You can sort of see it. I need to make some changes to like my fill and my stroke, so I'm going to fill these now with 100. Okay, and this background is kind of obsolete because the squares are covering the entire canvas. And then I'm also going to do a stroke, which I'll make white, and then I'll do a stroke weight at 1. All right, so the reason we saw that act weird is because the rectangle just picked up all the properties of this fill here when it came back around. So I need to give them all its own. So now let's try again. And here we go. Okay, so now I have my squares. All right, so each one of these is a square. So the next thing I want to do is just make sure, so when I am in the square, in between each square, that it is going to light up. It'll give it a little extra fill. Okay, so like in this one here, it's sort of just a very light background, so it's not even a complete color change. It's just, again, it's just a light sort of transparent, and that'll be some alpha as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do here now is I need a condition statement. This is similar to what we did in the last lesson where we were making shapes and we would click inside the shape to make something happen. So this is another conditional statement, if, and I need curly brackets there. So if, okay, so now this is just going to be if mouse x, right, is greater than, I think I need W times I, okay, so that will set it for each one of these, so it's greater than this, or if it's greater than this, or if it's greater than this line, okay. Now this one I'm going to use a compound as well, but I'm going to use the and. So remember here we had an or, so either this is true or this is true for this if statement. this one I'm going to have this has to be true and this other thing has to be true, which is mouse x is less than. And here I basically need to say this starting point plus the width of this square. Okay, so that I'm going to do w times I. I'm going to do that in parentheses just to make sure that is done first, and then plus w. Okay, so that is what's going to happen there. So if it is past this line but before this line, and then through the for loop it'll take into account every single one of those. So I'm going to do fill equals, I'll say 255, but I'm going to make a very low alpha there. Okay, and then I'm going to make an else statement, and I think what I'm going to do is just take this fill and put it into here. Okay, so let's see if that works. Okay, all right. So there we go. So as I move my mouse back and forth, it is going to change and give me that sort of light highlight of each square by me using this compound conditional statement inside of the for loop and using this sort of variable I've made that breaks the canvas up into these pieces. Okay, so my next step is going to be to add the sound. So I'm going to make a oscillator object in the next video.